Well, I'd like to welcome you all tonight. Thank you for coming out in the bitter cold to this nice warm place. Tonight we have Sandra Champlain, who will be talking about her book, We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. And she does have some copies of her book and DVD, and actually a couple different CDs, one about chocolate.
I'll tell you that story.
Yes.
Yeah.
She is I'll let you tell
Okay.
that story. And also one about grief. And I will let you know of a few upcoming programs that will be happening. December 9th, Monday, we'll be having Bob Halloran, who's a sports news anchor for Channel 5. He'll be coming to talk about the book Impact Statement that he wrote. It's about Whitey Bulger and the family's statement about that. And he also wrote Irish Thunder, a book about Mickey Ward. So he'll be there on December 9th at 6 p.m. So, and then on December 16th, actually at Nichols Village, which everyone's welcome to go to, and this will be at 6:30 in the Cannon Hill Room. Diane DiNapoli will be talking about her book, The Great Penguin Rescue, and that's about the rescue of 40,000 penguins, which is the largest animal rescue ever done. And she was one of the main coordinators of this international rescue that happened off the coast of South Africa. So that should be fun. And she's actually another local author. Sandra is from Byfield, and she is from Georgetown. And I also just wanted to mention that there is going to be a book group at River Pines. So any fans of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, they'll be having the book group on Wednesday, December 18th at 2 p.m. So if you're interested, come on. And we have several copies of the book here that you can borrow. So for now, I'd like to welcome you to see Sandra, and hopefully a few of you have gotten the chance to look at her book a little bit. We own a copy, and she not only has looked into the grief aspect, but also the positive going forward aspect of going beyond and living beyond. But she also is a chef for some race car drivers and has a chocolate company. So, no further ado, Sandra Champlain.
Thank
you
you
for
coming.
coming.
Well, hi.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Thank you. And I can just say this right off the bat. My knees are shaking. I feel my voice trembling a little bit. It's no matter how many times I speak, I don't know if you call it stage fright, but I get a little nervous. So bear with me. I'm a local gal from Byfield. Don't live too far away. My neighbor Joni came with me tonight. And I want to thank all of you for coming out. It's cold. It gets dark early. Thanksgiving is right around the corner, and you chose to be here. So I really thank you for taking the time to be here tonight. So a little bit about me. You introduced me quite well, but even listening, I'm thinking, wow, she does a lot of stuff. A little bit about my past is I'm a chef by trade. I was born in Beverly, moved to Connecticut, spent most of my life there, and went to culinary school, went to the Culinary Institute of America, graduated top in my class back in 1987, created this chocolate shop. It's in Kent, Connecticut. It's called Kent Coffee and Chocolate Company. I started that in 1991. And that still exists. I don't physically work there. I have a wonderful manager who's there. And then in it was 1987 that I did my first race. My mom was a travel agent, and our next door neighbor was a race car driver. And there is a race that happens in Daytona Speedway every year called the 24 Hours of Daytona. And my mother volunteered my services to cook for the race team for the 24 hours. Yeah, now I didn't know what I was getting into, but I just cooked out of a little motorhome and cooked for the pit crew for this race. Well, year after year after year, I would do that race, that one race. And then there was a race that happened in Connecticut that I had attended in, I think it was 1996. And do you remember the TV show Coach?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes. Craig T. Nelson was that actor's name. And he was co-driving with the guy that I had cooked for so many years at Daytona. And because Coach was a celebrity, they wanted to have a big, beautiful hospitality tent for him. And I went just as a guest to see my mom. The food wasn't good. I found out how much they were paying for it. And me and my big mouth said, I bet I could double the quality at half the price. And there in that moment, Coach and this race car owner said, okay, why don't you do it? And so my mom and I started in 1996, the two of us working together, cooking for this one team. Well, the next race happened, and Paul Newman walks under my tent with Don Panos. And Don Panos is the man that invented the nicotine patch. And they said, we're going to start a race team. Will you cook for us? How can I say no to Paul Newman? And in fact, I was a little starstruck because he went up to the buffet and he lifted up the Italian salad dressing and he says, I trust this is mine. And I said, no, it's Sandra's own, silly. But anyway, so both those race teams that I cooked for started winning all the races. And so other race teams would say, well, what are they doing differently? Well, they eat at that tent. So over the course of the many years, and it's been since 1996, Mom and I have done this, the tent's gotten bigger and bigger, and we've cooked for more and more and more people. And now we can cook for 500 people a meal up to 1,500 people a meal. And we have a big staff now, but I'm on the road traveling. So that's my day job. It's not glamorous. It's 16 to 18 hours a day. I got my hair pulled back with an apron on and knife in hand or spoon and working hard. So I just returned from Daytona a few days ago where we did an event cooking for the race teams. So that's that. But you're here to hear about my book. And why the heck did a chef write a book called We Don't Die? So I'm going to go back a little while. It was 1996, in fact, that I developed out of the blue, I think it was out of the blue, just this fear of dying. I was going through a phase in my life that heartaches, not really happy with my chocolate shop and my job overstressed. And have you ever had those times when you look up at the stars and you're looking into the vastness of the night and you just wonder, who are we and what is our life for? And we all seem pretty insignificant, based on that. Well, how it surfaced inside my head was just this fear. Now, I grew up Catholic and went every year to Catholic school, church on Sundays. That was my life, and we were taught faith. But when I developed this huge fear of dying, like what happens next? Faith wasn't enough. I wish it was, but it wasn't. So very secretly, I started this journey. And I first started with looking at my major world religions. Maybe somebody really knows, really has proof of what happens next. And I couldn't find it. And it was great because I did get to study a lot of the religions of the world. And, everybody's got the same common denominator of believing in life after death. So I'll fast forward to this book now because I have a chapter about the major world religions. And just to make sure everybody feels included, that by no means are we going against anybody's religion discussing life after death. But as time went on, I never got an answer. And I was left kind of unsatisfied. But without an answer, all there really was faith. And so I said, well, Sandra, if you can be the best person you can be and live a good life, then whatever happens when you die is what happens when you die. And I left it at that. So I continued with my life, and I picked up a new friend, and her name was Nancy. And Nancy was one of these really spiritual people. She would talk about the angels, and she would talk about mediums and psychics and astrologers. And now you've seen my subtitle, I think. It's We Don't Die, a skeptic's discovery of life after death. And I wasn't only skeptical, as I was cynical. If people told me that they were going to see an astrologer or a medium, or they believed in angels, I thought they were nuts. There's no proof of that stuff. You should get busy in your own life and not buy into that. And even in a bookstore, if I walked in and I saw that spiritual section, not for me. But this Nancy, on the other hand, was such a warm, loving friend that I thought, well, it's no big deal if she talks about the angels. I can deal with that. So Nancy gave me a deck of what's called angel cards. And I don't know if you've ever seen anything like this, but it's a deck of cards. And each one, when you shuffle the deck, you can pull out and you can get an inspirational message. And so she gave me this as a gift, and I thought, well, okay. And my mind just said, of course, any card you pull out, you can apply to your life. There's really nothing special about it. You can't convince me these are my angels talking to me. And so I was at a race in Florida, and for 9 days, I would shuffle and I'd pull out a card. And 8 out of the 9 days, I got the exact same card. And that was weird. And that card was music. And the message from the angels, because there was a little book that came with it, is to leave music on in the background. That music is good for your soul. Listen to the words within the music, and there might be a message in there for you. So normally at work, I don't have the radio on. I put the radio on, and I started listening. And sure enough, as weird as it was, there were some songs that I thought, you know what? Yeah, I'm putting life in perspective and positive things that I needed to hear. And then something happened that I didn't expect. And I don't know, have you guys ever had the instance where you knew somebody was calling before they called and then the phone rang? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, well, I started hearing a song in my head, and then it was played on the radio. Right. And then I thought, well, that's got to be my imagination. The DJ must have said it. That kept happening. And I was led to want to do some more research, very secretly, again, because I don't believe in this stuff. But who was this lady that created this deck of angel cards? And her name is Doreen Virtue. She was once a psychologist, and now she's the angel lady. Her story is very interesting. She had heard voices in her head that, like a premonition of getting a carjacking, and when she lived in California. And sure enough, everything she first saw in her mind happened to her in real life. And so she had never believed in that sort of thing. And when it happened, that was her kind of a turning point to, like, what was that? And so now she's in the world of angels and mediums and things. And so very discreetly, I found out that Doreen Virtue was offering a course in mediumship. If you attend my class, will be somebody who can accurately tell the deceased people around others. So just a little bit what's going on in my head now is the skeptic was saying, there's no way anybody can teach that. I mean, that's impossible because I don't believe that. But the girl inside, who was so afraid of what happens next, decided to book the ticket and go. And so my very first experience with this is I show up in a group, maybe twice the size of what we have here. Maybe there was 25 people in the group. Didn't know anybody. And everybody was dressed, I want to say, like gypsies. I mean, you can just imagine the long flowing gowns and things. And there was me. I was wearing khaki pants and a polo shirt and didn't feel like I fit in. And it was a 3-day course in Laguna Beach, California, beautiful resort. And the instructor, she seemed pretty normal. She says, I want to tell you how mediumship is done. We're not going to do it now, but I want everybody to grab a partner. And she says, sit knee to knee, chairs like this, hold hands. And she says, this is what we would do when we start doing the medium readings. She says, and so I grabbed this lady's hands. She had short blonde hair, and it was probably mid-50s or something like that. And we hold hands like, okay. She says, one person go first. I thought, well, I'll go first. And she says, we're just pretending here. We're not really doing it. So there's no fear, right? Because I'm pretty creative being a chef. I can make things up. She says, I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to imagine your heart is connecting with the heart of your partner, just by like an invisible energy. And she says, you're very safe. And she says, and I want you to invent in your own imagination somebody standing behind your partner. And she says, what mediums do is they actually tell the story. If they show up to this side of the person, well, that's the father's side. And they show up on this side, that's the mother's side. And there's usually some different things you see about them. You know, again, you're making it up, so just say what comes to your mind. And then if there's a message, there's usually a message that comes through. Give the message. So I thought, well, I can do this. So what I did is, I'm working with my partner, and I made up that I saw a man standing behind her with blonde hair, blue eyes, windburned skin, big gap between his front teeth. I heard the name Jan, and I'm telling her all this. I said, I think it's your grandfather on your mom's side, and his name is Jan, and he's a fisherman in Denmark, and he's got this big gap between his teeth and really windburned skin, probably from being on the ship, and he died of lung cancer. Like, I don't know where that came from, but I made it up. And he wants you to go home and tell your mom that he loves her, that he never said, I love you, while he was living. So I opened my eyes, like, okay, it's your turn. And this woman, there's just tears coming down her face. Her grandfather's name was Jan. He was a fisherman in Denmark. He had the gap between his teeth. He died of lung cancer, and he never told his daughter, I love you. So I'm shaking telling this story because it's so easy to tell my story like if this happened to somebody else, but this happened to me who doesn't believe. And this woman turned to me and told me about my grandfather named John, this big German shepherd, the cane my grandfather used to always walk with, and how my grandfather was with me all the time, keeping an eye on me. That, my friends, opened the door to there's so much more. Now, I'm still skeptical. You need to really convince me of something to be true. So I started on this path that if that's possible, what else is possible? Now, did I tell anybody about in my life that I took this journey? No. Why? Because I used to think people were crazy. If anybody asked me, well, who do you see around me? And if I got it wrong, they would think, I'm one of those weirdos. So I wasn't willing to do that. And the truth is, 3 days of medium class, I was right maybe 30% of the time. The rest of the time, it was just my imagination. But when I was right, I was really right. So I started this path, and I won't go through all of it, but I dabbled in just about every psychic realm there was to find out, well, who's doing what, and how does this work, and how do psychics work, and all that. And then I thought, well, I've got to get into the world of medicine now. And I don't know if you've heard of Raymond Moody, who coined the phrase near-death experience. Mm-hmm. Yes, and back in the 70s, he coined the phrase near-death experience. And to the skeptic, I've always said that people that have claimed to have a near-death experience, and I don't know where I've heard this, but that when our brains shuts down, when we die, it's normal that we see a bright light and that we hover above the room, and that's all our imagination. So that's what me, the skeptic, had always said. Well, studying now with Dr. Raymond Moody, and this man interviewing 200,000 people, all with the same story, suddenly, and Dr. Raymond Moody is as regular as you get as a physician. He is not one of these New Age people. And he gave so much more information that I thought, that's incredible. And then I meet Dr. Ken Ring. And Dr. Ken Ring took Raymond Moody's studies one step further. He studied the near-death experiences of blind people, people that had never had vision in their life. And at those moments when they flatlined, yes, they rose above their body, but for the very first time they could see. He's got people, like one woman had floated above her body and had seen her husband talking to a doctor, bends over, picks up the doctor's pen that had fallen out of his pocket. The husband picks it up and gives it. The wife could see he was wearing his green shirt, and this lady's never had sight. So there's tons of those stories. And to the skeptic, it's like, well, that can't be. Well, it can be. Stories of reincarnation above and beyond what we hear about. In fact, on my website, I have the website wedon'tdie.com, no apostrophe, but I have everything I'm talking about, just about everything is there, that you can go and you can look and you can watch videos and things. And there's been a young boy who at a very young age would draw pictures of airplanes crashing into the ocean. And really horrific pictures. And the parents are like, what is this? And he would tell of this memory, or he was saying it was a dream, of his airplane crashing. And he knew his sister's name. He knew the names of the people that he flew with. And nothing let this kid's mind rest. So the parents actually pursued it. He knew the name of, it was somewhere off the coast of Japan, I believe. Anyways, I don't know all the details. They're on that video. But the kid knew exactly, and even knew the name of the person he was in a previous incarnation, knew the incarnation, knew the sister's name, knew about the ship. I knew so many details that there's no way this kid could have known this unless he was that, you know. And that's a really if you're a computer-friendly person, check out wedon'tdie.com, click reincarnation, and you can see that audio video. Pretty cool. Even one of the doctors, he studied 3,000 children who had memories like this, and they were able to trace back to people that existed. So I know our time is short, so I'm not going to go through the whole realm of everything I learned, but there was so much that happened that I believed beyond a shadow of a doubt for myself that we don't die. Now, great information to share with people, right? This happened back in 2005. I got all my information. It is now 2013, and my book just came out in January. Why is that? Because I think, and you guys will probably agree, that within our minds we have this little voice that nonstop talks to us. It tells us things like we're not pretty enough, or we're not smart enough, or you gotta lose weight, or, you know, it's not our best champion for us. You know that little voice inside your head? And sometimes if we stop talking, it'll say, what little voice? You know, that's the little voice. And that's I think as human beings, we all have that. I very playfully talk about why I think we have that in my book, We Don't Die. I tell this story. I'm very playful, and hopefully you can tell that. And I'm a little nervous being here in front of you, but I am very playful. And I pose the question, you know, if we don't die, what the heck is life for, right? Why are we here? And so this is me, make believe, but I tell the story in the beginning of the book. Like, what if? You know, what if there is this place? We can call it heaven or the hereafter. We can imagine a place in the clouds. We can imagine a place where it's all good all of the time. You know, you snap your fingers and you can create a mansion or a waterfall or a hot fudge sundae or whatever. However, after years and years and years and years and years, the problem with all good all of the time is that it gets tremendously boring. You know, if you eat your favorite food, say it's, I don't know, what's your favorite food? Do you have one?
Steak.
Steak. Okay, so the first few times you have steak, it's like, oh, steak. But if you only get steak for eternity, steak can get boring, right? So this little soul is flying through heaven and still is looking for something new, something different, something interesting, doesn't find it. Until one day there's this line that's forming, and it's like a line at Disney World, you know, when Space Mountain first opened, or one of those great rides first opened, and everybody's jumping in line, and this little soul says to another soul, well, what is this for? Oh, haven't you heard? It's planet Earth. It's not boring there. We go to planet Earth. We get 5 senses. We get adventures. We get emotions. And we go there to learn. And the thing is, though, if we choose to go there, we're also given this little voice inside of our head that will convince us that we are a person of Earth. It will be talking to us the whole time. We will forget who we really are. And is it true? The only way we're going to find this out is when we go ourselves. But my thought is, given that we don't die, there must be a reason for this. There must be a reason for life. You know, the joy when we love. There's nothing worse than suffering. I don't know what the reason is for that. But I believe there's a reason for us being here. So let me tell you why I decided to come out and write We Don't Die. My dad, love of my life, in January 2010, I was down for a race in Daytona at the Speedway. And we got the call that Dad was rushed to the hospital. He had had a tumor break apart part of his spine. Cancer. It had been radiated, but it did enough damage that he was in the hospital. They gave him his last rites, and it was tremendously scary. Dad did not pass away then. My dad was a cool guy. He passed away when he was 74, but my dad had ridden his bicycle 5 times across the United States to raise money for charity. He's even up to before he got sick, he would ride his bike 20 miles a day. He'd help people. He was just an extraordinary man. He was a captain for American Airlines back in the day. He flew airplanes. He was in the Air Force. He taught me how to fly airplanes, and I loved going upside down. You know, so I really loved my dad. And over the next 5 months, I decided to move from Byfield in with Dad and his girlfriend down in Daytona Beach. They needed help. Dad they called it a turtle shell, the shell just so he wouldn't move too much. He was hooked up to a pain pump. And this man who had so much energy and was so vibrant was now housebound and in a lot of pain and a lot of medications. And over the course of the month leading up to his death were like the best times for me being with my dad, because I got to actually, whether he was in hospice or the hospital or the nursing home, I'd bring in movies and I tried to, you know, just be there with him. And I mean, I really love my dad. Very positive, awesome man. What I didn't anticipate happening was that I have 2 sisters and a brother. And have you heard about siblings that fight when a parent dies? Yeah, yeah. And my close family actually turned into one of those families. And I didn't see it coming, and somehow, out of the blue, I got labeled as the greedy sister because I had moved to Florida. Sandro must want more of his money, right? It didn't make sense. And so Dad ended up passing away. And my siblings and I were just like this, fighting over dumb things, miscommunications. My sister said I said this, and I mean, everything blown out of proportion. And for all of us that have lost a loved one, it is, I feel, like the worst pain I've ever been in my entire life. So, and I think most of us could agree with that. So to not only lose them, but now losing the relationships I had with my siblings. Tremendous fights, not getting to see my niece and nephew. So I think naturally got into a very depressed way, very sad. I don't want to say I was suicidal because I was not, but I was so depressed that I could understand why people who feel that bad do something about it. It was awful. And something in my head, you know, I've been this investigator on the life after death, and even that didn't make a difference at the time because there's so much pain involved in where I was feeling, is I decided to look up grief on the internet. Well, yeah, there's the 5 stages of grief, and yep, I felt anger, and I felt this, and I felt that, but it wasn't enough. Why would such normal, good-loving people turn into such monsters? In the course of my investigation, I found something that most people don't know about grief, is that grief impacts our brain. It impacts our brain chemistry. Like there's, say a healthy brain has 100% chemical production going on inside. When we lose somebody we love, our brains kind of go into shock and we lose some of this chemistry. You know, this is a poor comparison, but love is like an addiction. And if you think of somebody who is coming off a drug or an alcohol, and you can imagine that withdrawal process, it's pretty painful. Well, when we love somebody, I think it's even worse. So you don't have them, you're not getting the chemical fix. Our brain is going through a really tough time, trying to readjust to the new surroundings. And so when that's happening, yeah, there's the anger, yeah, there's the depression, there's the feelings of guilt, there's the feelings of, you know, we keep replaying some of the same thoughts in our mind over and over and over. There's where the numbness comes in, but there also what comes in is this whole world of the miscommunications and the arguments. A grieving brain does not store information like a regular brain does. And many of us have felt this. Sometimes you can't find your keys. You don't know if you had that conversation or did I just dream it. Our perception's off. Our communication center is off. And why this is important is because I clearly saw, like, oh, no wonder we fought. We're fighting over, like in our minds, you know, we think we're fighting over the same things, but we're not communicating. The more digging I did, I found out almost 50% of siblings come apart when a parent dies. 80% of couples, married couples, get divorced when a child dies. 90% of couples get divorced if one of them's diagnosed with an illness, like cancer or something like that. And there's over 1 million grief-related suicides a year. And so I thought, wow, if people knew what I know, maybe it could help someone. So I told you that I own this, did I tell you that I own this chocolate shop in Connecticut? Yeah. And I had, just to raise some extra money for the chocolate shop, I had created an audio called The Law of Chocolate, a very playful CD all about chocolate. Well, it hit me, if I know how to create a CD about chocolate, I bet I could create a CD about grief. So what I did, and I can even show it to you guys, is I created this. It's called How to Survive Grief. And I bought the domain name survivegrief.com. And for free, if anybody goes there, they can press play and they can listen to all the information I found out about grief. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to pay it forward. I'm going to do that for people. I made a few posts on the internet, on Facebook, because I belong to that. And something amazing happened. 3,000 people downloaded it within just a few months. People started emailing me that it took away their pain, that they understood what was going on in their minds, that it helped with relationships and communication, and they knew they were going to fight with their loved ones, so they were ready for it. And then the final thing is that people, and one man even looked me in the eyes, who said he was going to commit suicide because he was so depressed. And he listened to this and he realized what he was feeling was an impact of grief. And he took the steps to move on. And needless to say, he's still alive. He's engaged to a woman and he's got life. So after a few stories like that, and a few emails, I thought, you know what? I've got to tell more people. Now, standing in front of you, I don't think I want to be known as the grief lady, because I'm very much about living life. I think grief is something, yes, we all have to go through, but I do think, and we're always going to miss our loved ones, but when the pain subsides, it's like getting back into life. That's what I want to be known for. But I thought, how does a girl get this out to a lot of people? You write a book. And believe it or not, before Dad passed away, I had the guts to share with him about my journey, about what I've discovered about life after death. Oh, and I thought Dad was going to think I'm nuts, because Dad went to church every day. And I thought, oh, I'm going to tell him about this stuff. And here's a funny story. I said to my dad, because now I'm not a practicing medium or anything like that, but I kept seeing in my mind's eye this picture of an airplane, a yellow Piper Cub with black letters. And I said to my dad, after I told him, the story about some of the things I've studied, I said, Dad, I don't know why I'm seeing this, but I keep seeing this airplane in my mind, just like I had seen the guy with the gap between his teeth. And he says, well, what else do you see? I said, I just sense a man laughing and saying, I did get to bring my toys with me. And Dad looks up at me with big eyes, and his eyes filled with tears. He had a friend named Don who had cancer, and he had a yellow Piper Cub with black letters. And my dad was trying to be his coach to positive thinking and get him healthy. And, you can beat cancer because, Don, you can't take your toys with you. So Dad made me promise that I wrote a book. Well, who am I to write a book? Other people write books. I'm just a girl from Byfield, I don't know how to do that. Well, as miracles happen, and I don't know if you guys believe in miracles, but at this point, I certainly do. I look on the internet and I find a weekend workshop on how to be an author in Las Vegas. And I flew out there and very courageously spoke to a publisher, because now I thought this guy's going to think I'm crazy. But I needed him to know that I thought I had the makings of a good book. The number one fear all of us humans share is dying. We lose a loved one. Are they still around? Will we see them again? And I say yes. And I say I've got the proof why. And then, I get people to read the book because they want to know. But I put in that one chapter of grief. The information that's on the grief audio, that's chapter 10. And then the rest of the book is while we're here, how to have a powerful life as a human being. Most of us hear that people die with regrets. What would it be like to not die with regrets? What would it be like to, no matter how old you are, live life to the fullest, love, have compassion for people, have fun, really, playful out in this life while we're here. That's what I want to be known for. So what I didn't know is this man was the same man who had first founded Jack Canfield with Chicken Soup for the Soul. Oh. He was the one who founded Mitch Albom, who had a dream of writing a book so he could pay for his friend's medical care. Tuesdays with Morrie was that book. There's a book out called The Notebook. This man, my publisher now, he founded him and several others. And he said if I could really write what I'm saying, he'd be interested. But he needed to see a few words. Have you written anything before, he said. And you know what I said? No! So here's what I did. I imagined somebody sitting right in front of me, and I started telling my story. And that's exactly how it reads. People are left wanting to email me saying, it's like you're my friend. I already know you. And that's the only way I knew to write. No big words. And what's happened is the publisher put this book on fast forward. Let's get it out as soon as possible. It came out in January, which is great. Amazon picked it up. Amazon picked it up in one of their promotions, and it got #1 grief book in three places: United States, Canada, and the UK. It's also in the motivational book category, and it got #4, just under Dr. Phil with Sandra Champlain from Byfield. How's that happen? I don't know. But now, between the book and the grief audio, there's over 10,000 people that have gotten this message. There are emails coming in like you wouldn't believe. One lady, I was telling Diana before this, her kids gave Mom the book. Now, Dad had passed away, and Mom had locked herself in the house for 5 months. And they said, I don't think Mom will read this, but we're going to leave this here for her. Well, not only did she read it, she got her life back.
This is your mom.
Not my mom. This is a reader's mom.
Yeah.
Oh, my mom is so happy. I dedicate the book to her. She's my biggest champion. But anyway, so this lady's now out of the house. She's taking line dancing classes. She's out with her friends. She's living her life. It's like, oh, thank goodness. I cook for the race car drivers. One of them picked up the copy of the book, and he says, well, I'm going to buy this just because you wrote it, but I'm not really interested. I thought, no problem. Well, didn't he read it? He's ordered 3 cases. He says, this is the most motivating book I have ever read. Because like I said, it's not life after death book or grief book or motivational book. It's how to live life as a human being. Not a religious book. I mean, I'm definitely Catholic, but I wanted to include all people and not alienate anybody. And so, when you read it, you'll feel like you know me, and you'll think, yeah, it's positive. It really is. But for the stories alone, it's incredible. And one of the things, and this is something I want to leave with you all tonight. Now, it's holiday season, right? And I don't know if you're like me, but there's some loved ones that are no longer around. And it's tough. It can be very, very tough. And I want you to think, and this is going to just take a little stretch of the imagination a bit, but Albert Einstein had this quote, we can look at life like nothing is a miracle or everything is a miracle. Now that little voice that's inside of our head, it's always looking at the negative, and it's always telling us we're not enough. It very rarely sees the good in things. How often do we miss a sunset? And it might be right there in front of us because we're too busy thinking. And I started thinking, years ago, way before any of us were here, this earth just used to be rock and grass and dirt and trees and water. And somehow or another, we have all this stuff. We have steel, we have camera, we have... let's talk about the wireless internet. Well, where the heck is that? What is that? We have television signals, radio waves. We are, if we can pull ourselves out of that little voice, we are living in a very miraculous world. I don't know how many people have cell phones, but how the heck does that work? Right? There's no wires. And 150 years ago, if you were to tell a human being that they would be driving in something called an automobile, and there's going to be a box inside your car that voices come out of, they would think you're crazy. There's no way. And that was their little voice. And here's something else. People often ask me, where do I think heaven is? Because, is it a place in the clouds? Is it here? And I've done enough studies, and I even include this inside We Don't Die, about the whole world, and I don't know, I'm not that smart in this, but the whole quantum physics energy thing, it is proven that the chairs you're sitting on, radio waves, the book, whatever, everything's made up of energy. Everything. This is not New Age belief, this is fact. Science has proved it. Even you hold a book like this and you feel it, but inside, even one of the molecules inside of our hands were made up of atoms. And if you had a little camera, then you put inside each one of your atoms, guess what? There wouldn't be anything in there except for vibrating energy. So we are made of energy, and that is pretty darn miraculous. Just as miraculous as the billions of stars out in the universe. And, that's pretty miraculous as well. And so when people say, well, where is heaven? Now, I've found out that, do we have wireless internet inside this library?
Yeah.
Okay. You're like, yeah, we do. I've been using it. Energy can live in the same place as another energy, right on top of each other. So we are now surrounded with the wireless internet, and we can't see it, but it is very real. I say heaven is the same place, invisible to our eyes, but we can pick it up. When I mentioned, I took the medium class, and it seemed like my imagination, and I could see accurately. It dawned on me that they must all be here, invisible to our eyes, but they really exist. And I met a physicist named Russell Targ, who's now 80 years old, and he is one of the first designers of the laser beam. So he is a very smart man. He's not in the world of the new age, and he taught me something called remote viewing. And have you ever heard of ESP? Yeah. When we quiet our mind, that same place that I could close my mind and see the man with the big gap between his teeth. And this is miraculous, but it's real. Every human being can actually see in, I guess, their mind's eye, like ESP. And one of the experiments he had us all do, because again, I take my weekend courses, I love learning, is he had us each take a brown paper bag and hide an object in it, and then we each got a partner. And then we had to pretend we knew what was in the bag. Now he says our divine mind, or whatever you want to call it, can't tell what the object is, but it can see things. Very much like I could see the guy with the gap between his teeth. And so I was working with my partner, and I saw, what came to my mind was a silver ring, and it had 3 gemstones, a red one, a blue one, and a green one. And then I saw a clothespin, and part of the instruction was, well, what is it about the clothespin? Thinking something opens and closes here. And then part of the instruction is, well, how big would this object be? And I said, well, about this big. And I kept seeing silver. And then all of a sudden I saw a strawberry in my head. The brain comes up with these wild images. Well, what is it about the strawberry? I said, something about the texture. It has bumps. So my partner pulls out of the bag his cell phone. Flips, open, closes. Touching it, felt like the strawberry because all the bumps. Silver. And here's the best part, is the menu button was a silver ring, and on it was the green talk button, the red stop button, and the blue menu button. Wild! There were 60 people in my class, and everybody could do it. And why am I telling you this now? Because
everybody could
see
that
something
thing
that they couldn't normally see, something that was closed in a bag.
and that particular thing they saw.
Everybody had a partner with some other object.
And they saw.
They saw images from what that was. They couldn't put it together, what it was. And this Russell Targ has been studying this for a long time. He even worked with the Central Intelligence Agency back in the day. You hear the things about the X-Files and things, and that was actually all based on, psychic research that the U.S. government did. Very real thing. And so I thought, wow, I said, I wonder if I can remote view on my own, or do I always need a partner? And my grandmother's favorite magazine was Woman's World. And so when Grammy passed away, I made the habit of always buying the weekly Women's World. And so when I had taken this class on remote viewing, I said, I wonder if I can tell what pictures are in the magazine before I open the magazine. And so you have a notebook, and the homework is to quiet the mind, because now the skeptical mind nonstop says you can't do this, you're making it up, this isn't real. Just try to put that away. If I could see it, kind of like if I could see a deceased person around my partner, what do I see? And so my mind, oh my gosh, I just started writing down, there's a wine glass, there's cherries, there's a robin, there's, Statue of Liberty, Abraham Lincoln, I'm writing all these things down. So my intention was to open to page 29, and then there it would be. So I opened to page 29, and none of the images were in there. And I thought, well, that doesn't work. So I decided to read the Woman's World magazine. I start opening, flipping through the pages. There's the wine glass. There's the cherries. There's the Statue of Liberty on this page. How the heck did that happen? No idea. However, I'm a sneaky girl. It sounds too good to be true, and I know it, that I know about life after death, that I can prove it. It does sound too good to be true. Our skeptical mind doesn't want to believe it. However, I teach people how to do remote viewing, and anybody who tries it, it's mind-blowing, because when you can see something that you can't justify, how I could possibly know that. Even you could have a friend in Australia, Jerry, and you can pick up images of something he's got on his dining room table. When those things start happening, suddenly it puts this whole miraculous world of there's more to life than meets the eye, there's more to me than I know. The Einstein quote about looking at everything as a miracle, like it really can be. I want, and especially now this holiday season, it's really easy to go down the path of Dad's not here, and I'm not with my siblings, and I'm not going to be able to spend too much time with Mom, and Grammy's no longer on the planet, and it's so easy to go down that tunnel. But what I want to do is mix it up a little, like who are we really? Those people that you've loved and lost, I believe beyond a shadow of a doubt we're all going to see them again. And if we are, then how do we make the most out of our life? And I know there's been heartaches. I know there has been. And there's probably more to come. But there's also some joy too. And so how I close We Don't Die is giving people some habits to, I call, supercharge your life. Now, this is the motivational part, and I'm not going to get into all of them, but some of these are just good because this holiday season we could listen to that voice inside of our head, and like I said, go down this tunnel, or we can do some things about it. Now, one of the first daily habit I have is wake up your soul self, and that means that's that like divine part of us. How easy is it to wake up on the wrong side of the bed? Super easy. And to actually take a few minutes to write down, and it can only take 2 or 3 minutes, what are some of the successes you've had in life? Now, that little voice inside your head doesn't want to think of that. It wants to think of the negative. But if you take a few minutes and, what are some of the successes? And, if I ask the people in my life the good qualities about me, what would they say? Well, they'd say I'm pretty generous and loving and fun, and they tell me I can always count on you, Sandra. And, you're fun to be with, and, you're really generous. Not what the little voice inside my head is saying. So to wake up thinking about those things starts your day off really different. There's things about making a difference for another person. Have you ever done something for somebody else and you feel really good yourself? That's a good habit or practice. And maybe this holiday season we could do a random act of kindness somehow, somewhere for somebody. Laughing, sometimes things are tough, but if there's a new movie out called Las Vegas. I haven't seen it yet, but a lot of people say that's very funny.
The Las Vegas movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
And, take yourself to see something just to laugh, and one thing I want to talk about is gratitude. You hear about it all the time. Give gratitude, give gratitude. My grandmother used to always give gratitude. It's like, ugh. But you know what? You're having a bad day. You sit down with a notebook and you start writing 50 things that you're grateful for. And it might even get down to, well, I'm grateful I have a chair because some people do not. I'm grateful for the sun. I'm grateful for all the different flavors I get to taste. And then you start thinking, I'm grateful for my neighbor, and I'm grateful for being here in Groveland at the library, and Diana asked. And I'm grateful that I got to look at your smiling faces and that you guys listened to me tonight. I'm grateful that this is being filmed, and whoever you are at home, thank you. Here's a plug for me. WeDon'tDie.com is my website, and I have lots of videos there and information on the book as well. but gratitude is a real wonderful thing. And I say, I once heard this story about an aquarium, and they had big fish and they had little fish, and they had a problem. The big fish kept eating all the little fish over and over and over. So somebody got the great idea is if we can put the little fish in a clear jar and dangle these jars all over the inside of the aquarium, the big fish would go after the little fish, and then they'd bump their head on their snout right on the glass. Well, the big fish kept doing it until they realized that they're not going to get the little fish anymore. So they stopped. And so then the people that owned the aquarium took the little fish out of the jars and put them in. So now they're swimming amongst the big fish. But the big fish now didn't even try, because deep down they knew they weren't going to get the little fish. So I say, we live in this world that we've got this voice in our head that has convinced us that we can't eat the fish. It's convinced us we can't go after our dreams, or we can't say this to that person, or that we have to be afraid, and that we can never have this, and it's always going to be that way. And I say, no, we're living in a world, and yeah, is it scary? Yeah. Is there fear? Yeah. But I think many of you know, even those of you that are married, you got to step through that fear to get to the good stuff on the other side. So I really want to leave everybody tonight with just, you aren't who you think you are. You're really powerful. And we're here to love. We're here to learn. We're here to make a difference for each other. I have no answer for why there's such severe suffering in the world. I mean, that would be my number one question when I go, because I don't understand that. I do understand and know that without Dad dying the way he did, and without me being in my very lowest, that all had to happen so that now over 10,000 people have gotten this message. So you just never know why, it all happens. And gosh, I don't think I have anything else to say, and I could talk all night. But I want to thank everybody. I'm, no pun intended, an open book to get to. Like I said, my website is wedon'tdie.com. No apostrophe before the T. And the book, We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death, is at your favorite bookstore or favorite library. Just ask. And if they don't have a copy there, they can order it for you. Available on Amazon. It's on the Nook. It's on the Kindle. It's everywhere. And I thank you again on this very cold evening right before Thanksgiving that you gave me your generous time to be here. I hope I did it justice, and I hope you enjoyed yourself. Obviously, I have books for sale over here I want to show off. But most of all, I really thank you, and I just hope that you leave with a smile on your face that maybe you didn't have when you walked in here. So thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.